With a career that spanned nearly 4 decades, 40 years, and 3 weeks shy of his 65th birthday, 65 years old. One of the most iconic individuals in pro wrestling's history, or there ever will be, Sting finally calls it quits as an in-ring performer at last night's AEW Revolution pay-per-view event. We'll talk all about it. I'm going to let you guys listen for yourself what Sting had to say after the match, opening up about his conversations with Tony Khan that made him go to AEW and what Tony told him about how WWE was treating him. And Tony Khan was not happy about it. I'll let you guys listen to the words of Sting himself after this match. Also, if I can get the audio, I want you guys to listen what he had to say about his first ever tag team partner in the wrestling business, the Ultimate Warrior. And what Sting had to say about the Warrior last night after the match. It caught a lot of people off guard, by surprise. I mean, we knew it, but we never heard it. And for Sting, on his last ever appearance for AEW, for him to come out with that with that line, it took everybody by surprise. Hopefully I can get the audio and you guys can hear it for yourself. But we'll talk all things Sting in this upload. A proper send-off, a proper salute to 40 years of Sting. We're also going to talk Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch, a controversial statement that has everybody talking, more in a fun way, not like it's too severe in any way. It's a fun, harmless statement, but when you hear it, you think, why would Becky say that? Like, that is absolutely absurd to say that. But then when you think about it, is she wrong? Like, she may be 110% correct. So we'll talk about that controversial line in a recent interview. And she opens up about Charlotte Flair. And what she says about Charlotte Flair, it opens up that door into the locker room. And you really see exactly what we've heard about how a lot of the females look at Charlotte Flair. Not Ashley Flair, Charlotte Flair. And why so many people have, as Becky uses the word, animosity. So we'll talk about that as well coming up in this upload. So let's get right into it. Not a lot of time to waste. There's a lot to get to today. And there is, if all things go well, I would like to be live with you guys before Raw tonight. Live on the channel, maybe members only. So if you're a channel member, I'll open up the chat for all my members. Maybe we'll do a channel members only chatted live stream. We'll see, but I hope to do that later. To start this upload, I got to give a shout out to one of my tried and trues from the very start, Carlos Ray, chucking a couple coffees at the channel. And the upload we put up last, I think that was a couple days ago. That was The Rock in his 21-minute promo for the social doohickey machine on Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, telling Cody your story and telling Seth Rollins, Netflix doesn't even know who you are. Do you think when they inked that $5 billion deal, they were thinking, is Seth going to be champion at least? That's what The Rock says. It was wild. I let you guys hear it for yourself. That was a really that was a well-received upload. I appreciate the response to that one for sure. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. But Carlos in that upload, chucking some coffees at the channel. I did catch that. So Carlos, you're thinking, BC, you know how this works. I got to thank you right back, bro. Salute. Just always good seeing you up in here, man. Now, let's start with... We'll save the Sting stuff, right? A proper send-off. We're going to give Sting the main event in this upload. So we will start Becky Lynch. Right? Or do you want to start? No, you know what? I want to start Sting. I want to get right. I'm amped up right now. Let's start hot. Let's start with the main event. How's that? Sting. Sorry, Becky. You get to go on last. You're going to miss room service, but you get to go on last. Stinger, his last match last night, AEW Revolution. I was traveling so much of yesterday, perhaps too much yesterday. I missed the AEW event in its entirety. Spoilers on a few matches, earmuffs if you don't want to hear this, if you missed the event last night and you want to check it out. But Samoa Joe did retain his championship from what I am hearing. He actually tapped out Hangman Adam Page, I believe. So that's at least what I heard initially. So I'm giving you guys that bit of information if you didn't check it out. Hangman Page taps out to Samoa Joe. I am hearing that Adam Page is taking time off. So if you're wondering, wow, they just had Page lose kind of simplistically. No, that's for a reason. I'm hearing he's taking some time off. But Samoa Joe did retain. Toni Storm retained, defeated Deonna Purrazzo. And Sting and Darby Allin defeated the Young Bucks. Sting with the ultimate scored victory. That means Sting and Darby retain their titles in Sting's last match, so we know what has to happen at that point. Titles have to be vacated. Sure enough, not long after, that's exactly what was confirmed. Titles are vacated, and there's going to be another wrestling tournament. We don't see enough of those these days, huh? Whose idea? A wrestling tournament, yes. Just let everybody in there, man. Easy peasy booking. Grab your Sharpie, grab a Post-it note, and you can plan out a whole month, 2 months worth of television shows. Just a bunch of tournament matches. I can't stand tournaments. I used to really enjoy them when they were few and far in between, once in a blue moon. These days, there's just a tournament for everything, guys. Just to claim somebody a best in the world, to honor Owen Hart, we got to do a tournament. We got to do a tournament for a number one contender to a mid-card title, like the U.S. Championship, like we just saw over at WWE. A tournament to decide a number one contender, not even a title. Of course, there's the King of the Rings, the Queen of the Rings. There's to get the G1 and then the bootleg versions of the G1s. You can go on and on. There's just tournaments for everything, guys. So I think I just got tournamented out along the way. But tag titles are vacated. I guess this would be the only way, right? What else are you going to do, Beasley? I know. Trust me, I know. So here comes another tournament. But that's the way to go out. If you're Stinger, man. And he says afterwards in the media scrum, he says there was some resistance to that. He wasn't sure that that's what he wanted to do. He actually fought it a little bit. But you could tell by Tony Khan's face during those words that Tony was like, no, you're going out. You're going out on that winning streak. You're going out with a championship. You're going out as a champion. Like Tony Khan was not going to budge on that. I feel that's the right call anyway. You know, there was zero reason for the Bucks to get that, to pass this torch. Sting, that moment, hoisting up a title. And it's not like nobody's getting a rub from this, man. Darby Allin is going to carry the last 3 years of that rub. The last 3 years of being side by side with one of the most iconic figures in pro wrestling's history and future. Sting. Darby Allin is going to gain so much going forward from this. So it's not like nobody else gets to carry a bit of that torch. And the Young Bucks, Stinger said that match he puts up in his top 3 of his career. That's what he said. So, you know, the Bucks delivered, and whether the Young Bucks hoisted up titles or not, that was not going to matter as much as Sting's iconic visual to end his career. And that visual hoisting up the title is much better than just looking at the crowd dejected that he just lost the match, but thankful for the response he got. There's times for it, and there's times for what we saw last night. And I was glad that I got to witness at least that clip. I didn't get to see the event, but I went out of my way to witness that. That and another clip that I was told I had to see, which was Darby Allin swanton bombing from the top of a ladder onto glass, sheer glass. And the only visual I could see was like fan footage from the arena. And all you saw and heard was the glass shatter as this body hits it. Front rows like, whoa. It was wild, man. Darby Allin, before he went out to the media scrum, was talking about how he was still getting sewed up before he was called to the table. So, absolutely wild, man. So that's my thoughts on the Sting match itself. Again, I wasn't able to catch it in its entirety. Hopefully, I will get to do such in the next several days. But for Sting's career, man, 40 years. Again, I remember way back. I'm talking Surfer Sting, WCW days, way before WCW versus WWF, way before the Monday Night Wars, way before that. I'm talking when WCW was a fledgling company, right? They were just trying to stay afloat. And it was Sting versus Big Van Vader, right? Those were the days of the Barry Windhams. Those were the days of the Four Horsemen. Those were the days of Cactus Jack. Man, so many others. That was when WCW was so much fun. Super Brawl was the pay-per-view. Starrcade, Halloween Havoc when they had Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. I just remember Sting being the face of that company. Ric Flair right there, but he was a heel a lot of those times. When you're thinking the face, man, it was Surfer Sting and that beach blonde hair. Cody Rhodes-esque. Many say that's what Cody Rhodes was going for. Not even just the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. He was going for that Surfer Sting look. But that's what BC remembers, man, way before the Monday Night Wars. And that's when a lot of fans really found Sting, right? The Monday Night Wars, and he transitions into the Crow Sting, and he's coming down from the rafters. He's actually got the crow. He's got that long black leather jacket. He's got the baseball bat, the new face paint. This dude's badass. He reinvented himself. And not many wrestlers know how to do that, right? Chris Jericho. And I guess that's it. A few others, obviously. But Sting was able to reinvent himself as he went along. And he even added layers to the Crow character as the years went on. So for BC, it hits extra special because I remember those first few years. As young as I was, maybe I didn't get to really catch the first few years, but I remember them because they were spoken so highly of from everybody I was around, all the adults that watched Sting previous. So I was hearing the stories. I was watching the VHSs when they were in. I did my due diligence in the history, went back into the books, and really did my homework on Sting very early. So I got to enjoy him big time. Early 90s, before the whole WWF, WCW thing ignited. I really got to enjoy Sting's work early on, and it just is something that it built, as time went on. You could say that about a select few, right? Like The Undertaker. As time goes on, this phenomenon just builds with the career, right? It's like a snowball effect, and that snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it's a boulder, and that boulder presents itself like it did last night, Revolution with Sting. Anyway, I can go on, right? But I'm sure at one point it'll just be in circles because there's no true way in words, not even as a podcaster, and this is just what I am good at, right? Taking my thoughts and putting it into words and presenting them. But when you talk about Sting's career, it's hard to put 40 years into a half an hour or even an hour or 2 hour podcast. It just can't be done, and it shouldn't be done. You really got to go back into the annals of time and witness it for yourself, whether you were around back then and you remember those times, or you're a younger fan and you got some time. Go back and take a look at Sting's career. And last night he called it a quits, just 3 weeks shy of his 65th birthday. 61's already come and gone. 65 years old in 3 weeks. And I'm sure that's why he wanted to wrap this career up before all the talk that, whoa, Sting's 65, right? He wanted to wrap this up before all of this birthday talk. 65 is a milestone career, obviously, or milestone age, I should say. 65 for the longest time has been the retirement age. When you turn 65, you're considered an elder in this world, right? Or at least for the States, 65 is a retirement age. Maybe that's been moved up a few years by now. I don't know. But growing up, 65 was always that age. Like, ooh, 65. They can stop working now. And I guess that's how Sting looked at it. But 40 years in this business, nearly 65 years old. And last night, he ends it hoisting up those tag titles. A winning streak to end his career. 3 years in AEW and going out what he calls the right way. I want you guys to listen for yourself. This was after the event already went off the air. This was the media scrum. And this is Sting talking about not just like I mean, we could play probably a half an hour of just his thoughts on the night. But this was when he was asked, like, how did this... Looking back at the beginning of the 3 years with Tony Khan and just signing with AEW, like what made that even a possibility? What made you want to go there? First of all, pretty obvious, right? Lots of money, and you know you're going to be one of the leaders in that place, highly respected, unlike other places. I'll just leave it at that. And I want you guys to listen to this because he literally says, Stinger says, when talking about like Tony Khan, the initial phone calls with Tony Khan and how Tony was upset at how WWE treated Sting. He doesn't mention WWE by name, but I'll let you guys listen and you can form your own conclusion. I'll tell you why at the end of this clip. It's only about a minute long, but listen for yourself.
And off we could.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here. I mean, the very first conversation I had with Tony really said a lot because he just had something about him that just told me, I'm going to make sure that you retire the right way, that you're going to go out the right way. I don't like the way you've been treated over here or over there. You will not be treated like that here. And I saw an opportunity, liked Tony, and I liked all the wrestlers, male, female, the whole package. So a lot of the same behind-the-scenes people from WCW way back when. And the brand just really seemed to fit me. I was their brand and they were mine. It's like, with WCW all those years and then to be with TNA, it did kind of felt that way, but not really. It never really fully got there for me. And then WWE, it was never quite fully there for me. But this here, the whole package, I had just a great appreciation for the whole package and what a good fit. And I was right.
So he says in the first calls with Tony Khan was adamant. You have to come here. You have to end your career the right way. I'm not happy with the way you were treated over here or over there. He doesn't want to mention, but where's here and there anyway? TNA, many people say they wanted to see more TNA. They want to see TNA footage in that video package. Now I didn't get to see it. I don't know if they played any TNA video in that package before the match, but I'm told there was a Stinger video package to show that respect for Sting. I don't know if they showed any TNA footage. Maybe they did, but I was hearing a lot of people saying they wanted to see more, or if there was none, they wanted to see because that's where a lot of people really found Sting. I mean, he had a legit portion of his career in TNA. A lot of people don't realize that. It was multi-years, guys. It wasn't just like a short little run in TNA. He really tried to put that company on his back for a long time. So, I mean, to say I don't like how you were treated over there, I mean, it wouldn't be TNA. It's obviously WWE. I will be the first to admit WWE failed Sting massively. They misused on purpose Sting. And this is Paul Levesque McMahon, no question, even before he had the power that he has today. But just being right there with Vince and Kennedy, Sting was the dude. Paul Levesque McMahon tried to kiss a lot of ass when he was in WCW, right? William Regal, because he was his tag partner, was the really only one that would put up with his ass kissing, right? Ric Flair kind of brushed him aside, and that became a lifelong journey for Paul Levesque McMahon, right? He wanted to get Ric Flair to notice him and look up at him one day, hence Evolution. But that's another story. Sting was another dude. Sting really wouldn't give Levesque McMahon the time of day in that locker room. So all these years later, especially when it was WCW versus WWF, the Monday Night Wars, Sting was the dude, and Levesque McMahon was always thinking, damn, like that's the spot. And all these years later, they bring him into WWE for a WrestleMania just for Levesque McMahon to beat Sting, and that was it. Maybe he had like a match with Sethington Rollins or something, but that was it. Sting told them, I want to do more. I'm ready. I can rock. I feel good. And WWE was like, yeah, we just got nothing for you. You have nothing for Sting? Are you out of your dome piece? Are you off your rocker? WWE had Sting, not just in the palm of their hands, in their lap. Sting wanted to work with them. Sting wanted to do more matches. Sting was willing to put talent over. He has said this on numerous occasions. And WWE's response was, nah, but you can sign a Legends deal. You can sit at home. We'll give you a few thousand every month. But we're not putting you back in the ring. Levesque McMahon already beat you. You're not getting that match back. We got some rub for Sethington from you. Thanks for that. And we're just going to have you sit home. Are you? That's wild. It was clear in WWE how many fans were excited to see Sting when they had that stupid box segment. I think that was with Seth Rollins. And the box is unveiled. It was like a gift or a present, and it ends up being Sting in the middle of the ring, and the fans pop massively. I mean, that's what you could have had more of. But WWE knew that. WWE did not want to put Sting on that pedestal. They were, for some wild reason, carrying grudges from how iconic he was in WCW. That's obvious, right? That's clear now looking back more than ever. It was clear then, but it's even more evident and obvious and clear now, looking back at it. And Tony Khan, being the fan that he is, I will give him that. You can decipher if he's a good boss or not. That's the eye of the beholder, your prerogative. But he's definitely a super fan. And for him to have those talks with Sting and say, listen, I'm not happy with the way you were treated over there. Where do you think over there is? It's WWE. That's obvious. It's the one company we know Sting was at that far more than any other entity he's been with absolutely failed him miserably. So that was interesting to go inside of that first few conversations with Tony Khan and why Tony desperately wanted him to come there, because he wanted him to end his career the right way. He saw the value in Sting when others tried to shut the door on Sting, tried to make people forget about Sting. So to TK, I say salute. Because he was right. Sting had so much more value. Sting, guys, an AEW short inception, but over 5 years now they've been around. Sting has been one of the focal points in the headlines. Do you guys realize that at nearly 65 years old, we're constantly talking about something iconic that Sting did or something that Sting is involved with? Several times over the last 3 years, several times a year, it is Sting. That or controversy backstage, which, with the removal of CM Punk, looks to be, as Samoa Joe says, over. Joe, who was, and from what we know, still a good friend of Punk, by the way, recently cut an interview where he said, this is the best locker room we've seen in AEW. Well, right after Punk leaves, if you're a good buddy of Punk, maybe you don't want to say that. But Samoa Joe's not bullshitting. But whether it's controversy or not, some of the better things, some of the things to look forward to and to put AEW into a good light, you can thank Sting. So that was just that was one of the, when I heard this whole spiel from Sting after this match, and I was listening to this maybe 2, 3 in the morning, so I was kind of like on my 18th coffee, but that really caught me. That caught me more than anything else he said. That and one other clip, and I hope I can get this up. This was him talking about the Warrior and the Ultimate Warrior. And he was just asked about the early, looking back now that his career is over with, looking back when it began, which, if you don't know, he began as the Blade Runners with the Ultimate Warrior, a tag team. And they just did not like one another. They just didn't. Two peas that should not be in the same pod. And Sting, man, wow. He's talked about Warrior in the past, but not like this. Listen to what he says. And this popped everybody. He was going to expand on it too at the end. This is less than a minute. He was going to expand on it too, but little Denise Salcedo almost ruined it. She tried to get a question in. I'm like, let Sting speak. Listen to this. This is Sting on The Ultimate Warrior.
Dude.
Hold on, guys. Maybe I can't get the audio. Because of one word, I might not be able to get the audio. Dang. Oh, no, I got it. Hold on. I got it. There's one word you're going to hear. You'll know what it is.
Portion of your career. Well, I think it was definitely good that we were both together to begin with, because, he looked like a freak. I was 265 pounds and I looked like a little kid compared to him. But both of us together were pretty intimidating, and, we had a lot of people saying, Maybelline Road Warriors. I don't know if you remember any of that, but yeah, but we thought, who cares? We get a match with the Road Warriors, we hit the big time. And so, but I think it was good that we ended up splitting up. It was good that he went his way and I went mine. We were not meant to be together. We were meant to start together, and it got us in the door for sure. But he needed to be on his own, and I needed to be. We were going to kill each other, literally, on the road. Two roided out young men.
Denise Salcedo, Instinct Culture.
Well, that's what it was then. Two roided out guys. I mean, just shooting straight here.
Just shooting straight here. We were two roided up guys about to kill each other. I can't believe he said that, bro. That popped the whole little media scrum, which is just, some podcasters and wrestling journalists or whatnot. But little Salcedo tried to that was a big moment. Salcedo just like, I got a question. I'm like, no, Salcedo, sit down. Oh, what are you doing? Let Sting elaborate. And thankfully, Sting cut off little Salcedo. And Sting kept going. He looked at Tony because Tony was like, he's like, I'm just shooting straight, man. I mean, that's what we were, two roided up dudes. And we had to go solo because we were about to kill each other. Awesome, man. Sting, it's nice when you reach the end of a 40-year career, the things that you say, you don't give any Fs. You're just going to rock it out. To Sting, man, in all seriousness, I thought we'd end that on a lighthearted note. To Sting, salute, man, honestly, 40 years, another one done in the books. And I think that completes everybody from back in the day, right? Warrior and Savage, obviously, unfortunately, ultimately, no longer a performer. Hulk Hogan still with us, but no longer a performer. Those were the big WWF guys. And for WCW, Ric Flair. I'm going to put Vader in there. Vader was huge for the old school WCW. Vader, Ric Flair, and Sting. And that's all. That's done. So now for the old school, that is it. Now we're down to, I believe, the Attitude Era guys. The Rock, Stone Cold says he still has a match left in him, whether that's with Punk or whoever they want him with. If the money is right, Stone Cold says he's got one more. Looks like The Rock's got one or two more. So that's it, man. 40 years and 65 years old in about 3 weeks. An early happy birthday to Sting. A thank you to 40 years. My whole ride as a wrestling fan, and transitioning into, podcasting and doing what I do for you guys. Sting was pivotal in that. And I got to see the entire ride, mostly anyway. Mostly. So for that, eternally grateful and thankful. Sting! Salute. And if you're wondering, right, there was a question asked, what about behind the scenes ever coming back? Sting's like, I don't want to. I don't want to be a manager. This is where I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to be an agent. I don't want anything like that. So we'd have to really find something because I don't see it. And Tony Khan just goes on this whole tirade about how like how much he loves Sting and he'll find a role and it's too much experience. And I agree with everything he said, by the way, but it was making Sting a little uncomfortable because he's like, damn, man, like tell me this later. This is a lot to take in. Tony Khan is just like, dude, I will sign you to a 75-year career right now, $1 million. I'll give you $75 million right now. Just stay with us, man. So, they're going to try to find something for Sting, but it just doesn't sound like he wants to do any of that. It's like Mark Calloway, right? Undertaker just doesn't want to do all of that. Shawn Michaels at first didn't want to. That's why it's wild that he's running NXT. Because Michaels was like, I don't want to do any of that. So it's just interesting. A lot of these like legends and iconic figures, they don't want to stick around in any other role. Maybe they love it too much. Maybe they want to be in there so badly that it's painful to be in that role. They can't do what like in WWE, like, you see Bobby Roode now doing, Bobby Roode, Jason Jordan, Jamie Noble. Jerry Lynn over in AEW is doing it. Dustin Rhodes is already doing it, even though he's an in-ring performer still. He's really helping out the ladies. But Sting doesn't want to do that. And you see that a lot with these legends. They don't want to be in that role. Interesting. Sting, salute, man. And I hope to watch that match in its entirety, by the way. I heard really good things about it. So we'll see. Just too much traveling, man. It sucks that I missed. I didn't need to see the whole pay-per-view anyway. I knew I would catch it in spurts over the week, but I wanted to see that match live, and I wasn't able to. Salute! 40 years of Sting. Complete. Becky Lynch. Yes, here we go. Where do you guys want to start? Let's start with all right, let's go with the controversial comments first by Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch said just one little sentence and damn did it blow up because now everybody's got an opinion on it and it's fair game, right? It raises an interesting concept. At first, it's absolutely stupid, you would think, to say this, but then when you think about it, it's like, well, isn't there, it could be true. Becky Lynch says that her and Sethington Rollins, they are the greatest. She said, this is a quote, "We are the greatest wrestling couple of all time." Not just like a kayfabe, like she means, like, sorry, not sorry, Seth and I are the greatest wrestling couple of all time, says Becky Lynch. And of course, this sent everybody into a, whoa, what about X? What about Y? What about Z, right? What about this couple? What about... At first, I'm thinking you can't make a blanket statement like that because it's asinine. It's so subjective, and it's just most likely not true. Many people are going to have different theories as to why this couple is the greatest couple of all time, or why you have to add in this couple into the conversation. So at first, you think it's absurd. Why even go there, Becky? But when you think about it, is she wrong? Like, let's go over just some of them, right? When you think power couples or the greatest couple in WWE history or wrestling history, because Becky didn't say WWE, Becky said the greatest wrestling couple of all time. Well, let's look at some of them that you would come up with and say, well, what about X? What about Y? What about Z? John Cena and Nikki Bella. Okay, you can add them into the conversation, but that's where it ends. I mean, you have to believe that Becky and Seth easily would defeat, not in a wrestling match, but in the talk of who's the greatest wrestling couple of all time in pro wrestling, John Cena, you could say, would trump Seth Rollins. I'll be fine with that. But as much respect as we will give Nikki Bella, she doesn't trump Becky Lynch. She hasn't been in the game long enough, first of all, or had the accomplishments and such. So right there, that would fall off, right? Because one of the two wouldn't meet the prerequisites. Becky Lynch far outweighs Nikki, just in accomplishments, in the career that they've had. And Becky is still going. You can go over to Daniel Bryan and Nikki's sister, Brie Bella, right? You could look at them as a power couple, one of the greatest couples in pro wrestling history. But Becky is not saying we're one of. Becky is saying we are the greatest. And I find it hard to believe that you could put Brie Bella above Becky Lynch. And Becky is still going, by the way. She's about to capture a championship possibly at Mania 40. So not even Bryan and Brie. Just like Sister, Nikki, and Cena. You could go to couples like Undertaker and Michelle McCool. Okay, I understand. Undertaker, a greater phenomenon easily than Seth Rollins. But to say that Michelle McCool is over Becky Lynch, that's not even in the same category. I mean, all respect to Michelle McCool. She was there for a cup of coffee. It's always good to see her back for another cup of coffee. But there's no way she lights a candle to Becky Lynch's WWE career. So then you say, well, okay, well, then which is it? Undertaker tops Seth, but Becky tops Michelle. So it's even, BC. But no, that's not true, because Becky trumps Michelle by a landslide. Seth Rollins is at least going to go down as one of the best wrestlers that many of us have ever seen, skill-wise anyway. So Undertaker greatly by a landslide tops him in a lot of areas. But to say that Seth Rollins was a simpleton, that Seth Rollins was a Brooklyn Brawler or a Barry Horowitz to The Undertaker is absolutely asinine. So what I'm saying is the edge, no matter how powerful the Taker is, the edge goes to Becky and Seth as far as couple. So then you go Ms. Maryse, right? Maryse, again, compared to Becky's accomplishments and career that is still going in WWE, Maryse was there for a couple, 2-3 cups of coffee. That's it. So I always love seeing Maryse come back. I feel Miz is best when he's got Maryse there because Maryse adds so much value. But when you're talking couples, Seth and Becky would trump them easily. Edge and Lita is a couple you hear about. No, what about Edge and Lita? Well, that was a candle that burned bright, bold, but it burnt out quickly, too quickly, right? Edge and Lita was not actually a couple for very long. A lot of people don't realize that. They had one good solidified year. One good. And that was it, guys. Edge and Lita, that was... So I understand, right? Edge would trump Seth, wouldn't he be? Okay, but Lita, as good as her, and by the way, even Lita's in-ring career for WWE, much more limited to what Becky has already done, let alone the next several years that Becky says she wants to remain in WWE. So that's what you got to keep in mind, too. It's where WWE and Becky are going forward, right? She's about to win a title possibly at 40, but she says she wants to stick around for years more. So it's a candle that burnt out too quickly. It was bold, but it burnt out. So Lita and Edge, you can throw them in the conversation, greatest couple of all time. But what Seth and Becky are continuing to do, it's just not even the same to me anyway. I understand the powerful names that Edge and Lita hold, but man, 1 year compared to what Seth and Becky are doing, it doesn't feel right. Brock Lesnar and Sable is another couple. Guys, Sable, again, cup of coffee, a little more, maybe, okay, maybe we brewed a few kegs of coffee with Sable. Enough for a memory highlight reel for sure. A lot of that with a lot less clothes on that she wears today. It was a different WWE back then. But as a couple, they were never really a couple on screen. They had some performances. They had segments together. Their love and coupleship blossomed outside the ring. And unfortunately, Mark Marrow, the wild man, Mark Marrow, Johnny B. Bad, and Sable broke up because of that, right? Sable divorced Mark so she could be with Brock. That was never really shown on camera. They were never a dynamic duo on camera. So to say that Brock and Sable should be in the same category of Becky and Seth, to BC anyway, is absolutely laughable. They're a wrestling couple, but they're not the greatest wrestling couple of all time, because for that, you're putting in the notion that they are on screen together. They're literally a wrestling couple, in and out. I don't know who else. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon was a couple of names you hear, right? Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, the ultimate power couple in many ways, right? They are the authority. But Oof, I don't know. I mean, the greatest couple in wrestling history. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Maybe Stephanie and HHH would be the closest to going up there with Seth and Becky. Maybe. Because of the work that Becky and Seth do, and I'm not even big fans of either. I'm not fans of either, actually. I give them all the respect. All the respect. But I'm not necessarily fans, right? It's hard for BC to be a fan of somebody, right? I have a select few, but I just don't offer my fandom card to just anybody. So no offense to Seth and Becky, but I'm not necessarily a fan. But I know how much they bust their asses. And I know how much they've accomplished and how hard they work. Man, I just can't see that HHH and Stephanie would override them. Greatest couple. I don't know. If you're asking couple-wise, that doesn't have to be a performer. For me, Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth, they are the greatest couple of all time in pro wrestling. So for me, but I'm changing the prerequisites a little bit, right? I'm changing the criteria to get into that category because Liz never really wrestled. So I understand that was greatly reduced to what Becky has done over the years and will continue to do, and it's not fair to Becky. But you're talking about on screen, right? On air couples. That's pro wrestling. You didn't just limit it to just the wrestling aspect. So because of that, I would have to say Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. There's no couple that can generate the stories as a couple like they did. I mean, Miss Elizabeth was the centerpiece to the Hulk Hogan Macho Man feud at WrestleMania 5. Miss Elizabeth was the focal point of one of the best stories of all time, Ric Flair and the Macho Man at WrestleMania 8. I mean, that's just Miss Elizabeth. And even when they went to WCW and they were separated, when they joined the NWO, man, Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth together, it was polarizing. So for many, maybe they put HHH and Stephanie up there with Becky and Seth. For BC, it's Macho Man and Liz. The point is, as controversial as this, in a fun way, but as controversial as this line was, because a lot of people are like, you can't say that. On the flip side, is she really wrong? I mean, that is easily, it would have to be in your top 3, if not 2, of the greatest wrestling couples of all time. I guess the only question is, would they be your number 1? Seth Rollins and Becky, it opens up an interesting conversation. I just thought that was very, I just felt that was a good discussion to have, you know, especially seeing how polarizing that statement became. I'm like, well, let's talk about it, because BC really did think of a lot of couples that I thought would be right there with them. But when you really break it down, they're not. And Becky may be accurate in her statement. And there was another thing that Becky said. This had to do with Charlotte Flair, and not necessarily Ashley Flair, Charlotte Flair, right? It's well known, well documented by both parties that they went their separate ways. They stopped liking each other. They stopped being friends, right? And Becky Lynch uses the word in a recent interview, animosity. There was great animosity toward Charlotte Flair. And that's interesting because you heard the same words being used to Charlie by other talents. This shows you, as much as Ashley Flair is a sweetheart, or at least that's what we hear by many, the character Charlotte Flair and the booking that she receives, rockets constantly strapped to her back, catapulted through the stratosphere, to the top, to main events, to championships, sometimes right when she comes back. A lot of the female talent, Becky Lynch once again uses the word animosity. A lot of the talents, because we've heard this over the years, a lot of the talents look at Charlotte's booking as straight bullshit. They do not think it's fair, and they don't see why. Why do we keep going back to the same well even though it's dry? We understand she's got the last name Flair, but the crowd response is mid-AF. In fact, it's so all over the place that they've had to, and this is a true statement, guys, they've had to turn Charlie Flair face heel about 9 different times. We always joke around. We say like 115 times, but it's been at least bare minimum 9 different face heel turns. And it's always interesting because the crowd never knows how to take Charlotte. And because of that, Charlotte can start a promo as a face, and by the end of the promo, she's a heel. She can start as a heel, and by the end of the promo, she's a face. That's not good. You're confusing your audience. And like Jeff Jarrett recently said in a wrestling doc, he said, the old adage in pro wrestling, and BC has said this way before I heard Jeff Jarrett say this, by the way. But Jarrett says this has been an adage for years in the wrestling business. He says, once you confuse your audience, you'll lose your audience. Confuse them, you'll lose them. And that's why after all of these years, well over 8, maybe 9 years of Charlie Flair at the top, the audience still does not connect, or at least not the majority, right? Not the bulk of these even towns. You know, these are arena towns where they pay their money. They're going to cheer for anybody, right? Especially if it's the heavily marketed and promoted Charlie Flair coming to town, right? You think they're really going to go all out. Doesn't happen that way. And Becky Lynch is giving you a glimpse inside that locker room, like what they truly feel. Not for Ashley per se, but for the booking of Charlotte when they don't feel it's right. And unfortunately, because of that, it leaks in personally to Ashley Flair and Rebecca Quinn. And once that happens, the friendship is pretty much done. And recently she said they got to rekindle that a little bit. They got to share a few laughs, but she admitted, in her words, like they're not best of friends by a long shot. She says, and I quote, she says, we're not in the business of friendship. We're not selling friendship. We're selling conflict. We're not in the business of selling friendship. We're selling conflict. We're not in the business of selling good times. We're in the business of selling conflict. That was an actual quote. So she's telling you, like, yeah, we got to share a laugh and rekindle some stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm not going out of my way to have a friendship with her, and I like where we're at now. I'm not stepping back. I feel I'm number one. She feels she is, and I'm going to keep busting my ass to make sure that I'm in the spots that they're giving her. That's just how Becky speaks. She said this in numerous interviews. This is just the latest. And I like that word she used, animosity, because it's a very, very honest approach to how a lot of those females view Charlotte. They like Ashley, but damn, this Charlotte thing, even to the talent, it has become nauseating. And for Becky, it actually ruined their friendship because it got to a point where it's like, dude, this is too much. And then Charlie gets all of this superstardom and all these accolades and everything handed to her. So then her head, whether she likes it or not, consciously or subconsciously, it gets big. And then you start looking over your shoulder at people trying to take your spot because you're so far at the top. The company placed you there and they're not taking you off that pedestal. Only you could be your own demise. So then Charlie starts acting strange. And that's what Becky has said in many interviews. She kind of just got different and I went my way. Interesting, man. I think when Charlie Flair comes back, here's an idea. This would solve a lot of the locker room issues with Charlie. It would solve a lot of the fans' issues, being confused and just not connecting with Charlie. I say when she comes back, put her in really good storylines that have nothing to do with the title. Just let her have good storylines with no title on the line. She doesn't need another title right now. Within 6 or 7 years, she was already like a 14-time champion, man. I say that I do the comparison all the time. Naomi, who's been there a couple years longer, she left obviously recently, but she's back now. But she was there for 10 years. 10 years, she only had 2 championships. Thank goodness it was Black History Month for one. I'm legit. Because that was a big time in the company where they were like, no, Naomi's got to be the one. We got to put her on the posters. We really want to get the media knowing that Naomi's the champion. That's a true story. And thankfully, because of that, Naomi got a championship. Thankfully, because she was in Orlando for the second one, I believe, she got another championship. At no time did she get an honest run with that championship. They never gave it to her. It was either because it's Black History Month or because it's Orlando, her hometown. So we're going to throw her a bone. And it's like literally stuck in the middle of the show, by the way, right? Overshadowed by a million other things. But what do you mean we didn't give Naomi anything? 10 years with the company at that point, 2 championships. If you put them together, they don't equal anything near a year, by the way. Meanwhile, Charlie's got 14 and she's been there years less. Charlie Flair's that much better than Naomi? On what planet? Stop. Naomi is incredible. After all these years, she is still incredible. As much as we love, or at least most of us, Tiffany Stratton, because Tiffany Stratton is already amazing, and we want to see her racking up W's. And as much as we want to see Tiffany Stratton go to the tippity top, man, it was hard to see Naomi lose like that last Friday. Because Naomi is too damn good to lose to anybody on that roster, to be honest. Still today. Yeah, that was a lot. I think that's it. What other? I had side stories, but man, I think we're headed toward an hour already. Let me see if I can get any of these in real. Maybe I can get one of these in real quick. Let's see what I got. I always have side stories on tap, guys. The problem is, once I start talking about them, they turn into 10, 15, 20, half an hour. No. Yeah, see, I'm going to save those. All right, I'm going to wrap this upload up here, guys. I hope to be live later this evening before Raw. I'll have the full rundown of the Raw preview. I'm hearing that it's another week of a bunch of rematches. That's nothing new, obviously. That's why the ratings are going backwards as we get closer to WrestleMania somehow without football competition. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you guys what WWE is giving us in the presser. We'll talk about it and any other last minute up-to-date stories as well in the pro wrestling world. So if you guys can catch PC later and hang for a little bit, that'd be awesome. It might be members only in the chat, so make sure you're a channel member for sure, but I haven't decided officially if that's what it's going to be. I just, at this point, I hope to be live later with you guys, because I do have a lot to do. So that's why I can't make this 100%. Just keep checking the chat. You should be already subbed and notified and all the things. Smash the up, help the algorithm. You should have already done the things down below anyway. So you'll be the first notified if we're able to go live. That's it. BC, top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Salute. Sting. Salute, dude. All seriousness. 40 years. Wow. They say time flies when you're having fun. 40 years went by in a blink. Salute.